I grew up in a small town in Minnesota. I ended up getting a degree in elementary education. When Life Action came, I was dealing with bitterness.
How did God meet you?
In June, I married David, and he was killed in August. It was a complete shock. And I would travel for the first 5 years with Life Action as a teacher.
Dear Team letters. I'm not sure people realize how many letters we get. Thousands.
It's powerful.
The widow's ministry. Why do you think that's so important?
God is walking me through the widow journey again. He does give you calm, peace in the midst of a storm.
Welcome to Changed Lives, a special limited series in which I explore the incredible stories of the people behind the scenes at Life Action, a ministry with a mission of reviving relationships through transformative events. Each of these individuals, my coworkers, have experienced God move in big and unexpected ways. And the more I heard their stories, the more I thought, people need to hear this. In this series, you'll get a first-hand look at how God is working in and through the people of Life Action, the challenges they face, the faith that sustains them, and the lives being transformed along the way. Their stories are powerful. Today I'm talking with Kirsten Lake, who serves faithfully on our ministry relations team. Her life is marked by quiet strength and deep care for others. Twice widowed, Kirsten has walked through profound loss, yet her story is one of steadfast faith, of how God's sovereignty and goodness have carried her through every season. As you listen, consider how God might be shaping your own journey. Life Action moves forward through servants like Kirsten, people whose lives reflect a sincere love for Christ and His church. Maybe God is calling you to be a part of this mission too. Enjoy the conversation. I'd love to start with, if you could just tell us about what's your title, what do you do here today at Life Action?
Well, today I'm working as the administrative assistant for the advancement team, which is basically the donor development ministry relations team. Mm-hmm. I just do whatever they need, and then there are different mailings that go out each week.
Yes.
And I kind of manage those as far as getting everything that the mailroom needs to get those mailings out to them. And I read all of the Dear Team letters, the testimonies that come in, and then choose the best ones and type those up and distribute that. There's a widows ministry that I kind of manage and send notes to the widows a couple times a year, and then a card on their birthdays, and pray for them.
That's a lot.
And just whatever comes along.
Yeah, that's a lot. We'll jump into some of those things, but that's a great description of your current role. And I like that you said, right now I do this, because you've had experience doing lots of things at Life Action. Yeah. So before we jump into all that, though, let's start from the beginning. So where are you from originally? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, straight west of Minneapolis, about 120 miles, and grew up going to a church that didn't present the gospel actively at all. But I think the Lord just kind of started speaking to my heart, I think, when I was about 9, but I didn't really understand that I needed to trust in Him until I was like 14.
Let me unpack that. When you say the church didn't preach the gospel, so what was it like?
It was a very liturgical church.
Okay.
So each service was set up the same way. Mm-hmm. And some of the sermons that we heard were either what someone else wrote rather than the pastor, or sometimes it was something that the pastor shared, or whatever, but there was not really ever any gospel presentation.
Gotcha. Okay.
It was just stories in the Bible and, just kind of unpacking what the stories meant.
Sure. And so how did that play out at home? So was faith a big part of your home? You were actively attending church.
That's pretty much it. We actively attended church on Sunday mornings, and that was, we went to church. The kids went to Sunday school, and that was kind of all there was to it.
So when you say that the Lord spoke to your heart when you were around 9, but it wasn't until 14, so can you talk about that?
Yeah, my family had gone to I don't really know what it was, but it was a family that presented the gospel using music and whatever, and we had gone to that, and they actually had an altar call, and I wanted to go forward, but my dad kind of went, let's wait. I think he was kind of hearing it too, but he wasn't sure what that all meant. And so it wasn't until I was 14 and went to a Bible camp for a week and actually heard the counselor present the gospel again and actually say, you need to believe and trust in what Jesus Christ did on the cross for you. And that's when I accepted the Lord as my Savior. And then, it's a lifelong process, learning how to allow Him to be Lord in your life, because we always want to take those reins back.
Yeah.
So,
did you have brothers and sisters growing up?
Yeah, I have 4 sisters and 1 brother.
Okay. Are you the oldest, middle?
Oh, I'm in the middle.
You're in the middle. Okay,
Yeah.
Great. And did any of your brothers and sisters attend the camp with you, or like
Not with me,
Okay,
but
gotcha.
Yeah, we're pretty spread apart in age. We're at least 3 or 4 years apart. We all went to the same camp, and I think most of us probably had somewhat of an experience there, but as far as walking with the Lord, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you come back from camp, you're 14.
hmm
How does that start to play out in your life? Are you in high school at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a freshman in high school. I went to Sunday school regularly, and there weren't a lot of, sometimes it was me and the teacher because it was a small church. But that just kind of impacted me, and I wanted to go to a college that it was still the same denomination, but I went to a 2-year college that
Okay.
worked more on the relationship with the Lord, and so there was some growth there. But I don't think I really started to really grow in the Lord until I started attending another church when I was in my mid-20s.
Okay. So let's talk about that. You go off to college. What's the plan for your life? Are you going there? Do you have a career in mind? Is it more like Bible study focused where you're going to go into ministry?
No, it wasn't Bible study focused. It was more, I started out taking more pre-med classes and sciences, and then realized that's really not the direction that I should go. So I ended up getting a degree in elementary education.
Well, that's a ministry.
Yeah. And I moved from Minnesota to Brownsville, Texas.
Okay.
And taught elementary school down there for 13 years.
Wow.
And it was while I was down there, I started attending a church that really presented the gospel every Sunday and just challenged me to start growing. And it took about 3 years before my dad, because I was baptized as a child, as a baby, an infant. And it took about 3 years to convince my dad that, no, this is still something I need to do as my own choice. So I was baptized when I was 29, I think.
29. Okay. And you were a teacher at that time? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were living in Texas, though. So not living by your family at that point, right?
No.
So you'd had your own life. And after that, you're 29, you're a teacher, but somehow you get to Life Action. So what happened?
That was in the fall of 95. My dad was diagnosed with ALS, and we were all called to come home that November. And he passed away that November. And at the time I was engaged. Well, Life Action came to my church the end of March, beginning of April in 96. And there were some things that happened when my dad passed away that just kind of created a lot of angst and just difficulty in the family and stuff. And I was dealing with bitterness toward all of that whole situation. And God really just opened my eyes to see that's, you need to step out and forgive and lay this to rest and just let all of that go. And I did. And another friend of mine was dealing with a situation with her sister, and she experienced a lot of the same things, just that forgiveness and letting go of all that bitterness and the anxiety that comes with that. And in June, I married David. and he was killed in August. And so I stayed with my pastor and his family for a while through all of that because he was murdered, and there was a lot of, the courts, trials, and meeting with a district attorney, and just a lot of trauma and whatever that went with that. And that's when, my pastor started talking to me about, well, maybe you need to go to Life Action for a year just to get away and see what God has for you there. And so he encouraged me to write a letter. So I wrote a letter, and it was Nancy. That called and talked to me. And that July I was here. And I traveled for the first 5 years with Life Action as a teacher for one of the road teams and their families.
I want to talk about some of this. So when Life Action, they showed up at your church, you were engaged at that point. And what team was it?
It was the red team.
It was the red team. Okay, so the red team shows up, and the message on bitterness is the one that really convicted you about that.
And it really set the stage for dealing with everything that happened with David's death.
Right. So it's almost like God is preparing your heart for what's to come, right? When you look back, right? Yeah. What was it about that event? Because even when you talk about it, it feels like it just happened. When you talk about it, feels like there's a realness and rawness to it still. And this is years and years ago. So what were you feeling at that event?
When Life Action came, I had no idea who Life Action even was. I had no clue. I mean, other than Byron Paulus had come down and done a pre-summit. And so, there was just a kind of an excitement that started to build. Like, how is God going to use this, and what is going to happen through this time? Yeah, it was just I wouldn't say a spiritual high, but just a spiritual depth where, that's, it was kind of like some of the puzzle pieces were being put together. I never heard bitterness or forgiveness presented that way. And those were the two messages. Those two were the two things that really impacted me. And just opening my eyes to say that, even within your own family, if someone doesn't know the Lord, they'd have no idea. In my family, there's knowledge, there's God. We believe in God, but there's not a lot of personal relationship. Talking about forgiveness, talking about bitterness, they're just like, oh, just let it go, and making it sound like it's something that's really easy to do. And it's not. It's a process. And just understanding that it was a huge step forward for me.
Yeah. And then how did you lean on that understanding, or how did God meet you in those devastating months that were to come?
Yeah. Well, I know even in the following the ambulance, because David did survive, he was alive for 11 days in the hospital in intensive care. I found him and a friend. And the two of them Jim died pretty much instantly. So I was the one that made the call for help. And then I called a couple friends, and they came over, and we followed the ambulance to the hospital. And on the way there, my one friend said, Kirsten, don't take this as your fault. Don't blame yourself. And I said, why would I do that? We live in a fallen world. I mean, we live in a world that's full of sin. I said, this was someone else's sin. It wasn't my sin. It wasn't David's sin. It's the result of living in a world that's fallen. I never would have even thought that, if not for the teaching that I had heard through the church and through Life Action. And just dealing with, whoever, because we had no idea who you had even.
It was a complete shock.
It was a complete shock.
Right.
And just as that all unfolded, what had taken place and how, it was like God was just showing me his hand of sovereignty. And that was something that really kind of impacted my life during that time was God is sovereign. You know, I mean, we live in a world that's not ideal,
Mhm.
and that's not going to change until the return of Christ. And, you know, accepting that he is sovereign and that he does orchestrate things for our good, even when they're horrible.
Mhm.
He does give you calm and peace in the midst of a storm.
Powerful lesson to learn in a devastating moment. Yeah. And probably one you almost have to look back on to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
all of the ways that God was providing for you.
Yeah.
So, on the heels of that, then you said your pastor encouraged you maybe to look into Life Action. Why do you think he suggested that?
I'm not 100% sure.
Mhm.
But other than just the fact that he thought it would be a place where I would be ministered to, a place where I could grow,
Yeah. Sure.
even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really those 5 years on the road, I felt like I was in Bible school,
Yeah. 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 And
because
were you working with Nancy during that time then?
no,
Okay, but you had
no,
called
I
you
was
called her or she called you?
she called
She
me.
called you.
Yeah,
Okay.
and,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what kinda started, and then Monica called and
Yeah.
got the application process all going, and one of the ladies from the church I attended, her son was about the same age as David was when he was killed in a motorcycle accident. I ran into her at the mall, and she just took me aside and she says, "I'll support you."
Mm.
And God kept doing that. It's like I think I sent out one letter,
Wow.
and it's not like I had, full support every month, but it was a process. And,
Mm.
God just kind of I just said, Lord, you brought me here. So,
Mhm.
you know,
In those 5 years, you were working as a teacher on the
mhm,
road.
yeah.
When you think back on that time, like, what do you recall from those 5 years? You said you felt like you were at Bible college. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, with the team meetings and
Mhm.
just going through different ways that the team members were being taught and how they would share what was happening, and then sitting through the services again, we were encouraged to sit through them at least once through the year, if not more. And because I was a teacher, and if I wasn't needed to help in the children's clubs or um, then I had the freedom to sit through the services. And I was in the prayer room a lot of times, so that was challenging to me to stay focused and stay in the Word, so that I had something to share with people that came into the prayer room.
Mm.
And I mean, God used what happened with David in two women's lives whose husbands had been murdered, and just challenging them to walk in forgiveness and to let go of the bitterness.
So using your life story to minister to other women who were
Yeah.
experiencing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a common thing, which
Right.
thankfully it's not.
Right.
But it was, I mean, God did use that story for
Mm.
that. And there were a lot of team members, each year you get a turnover of team members, and there were a lot of them that didn't know,
Mhm.
and so just being able to just continue to walk in, the way he wanted you to be, which is a gentle, quiet spirit, and allowing him to use that. And if opportunity came to share,
Mhm.
then you share.
Mhm. Hmm. So after those 5 years, were you ready to do something else, or what was the transition of like?
I was ready to come off the road.
Okay. Was it a challenge in
So,
some ways? I mean, you were in
oh
your
yeah,
30s at that point, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was 37 when, yeah.
Okay.
And there were other team members. I mean, now the team members are quite a bit younger
Yeah.
generally, but there were other team members my age or even older that were traveling.
Gotcha. And probably developing those relationships. Everyone I've talked to that has been on the road talked about the strength and the depth of those relationships.
Yeah.
And you probably experienced the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, those relationships are still there. I mean, not with every single team member, but, that community is still there. I was ready to come off the road, though, and just kind of settle down again. And
Sure.
my family was ready to.
When you say your family, like your parents and siblings, or what do you mean?
No, my parents were both gone.
Okay.
And
Right.
my mom died when I was freshman in college. But my siblings are ready to have me in one place.
Yeah, sure.
And David's parents.
Okay.
So when I came off the road, I worked in the shipping department for, I think it was like a year and a half. Well, it was closer to 2 years probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then during probably the last 6 months of that time, I was also doing the customer service part. So I was handling, the book table orders and the orders that came in for customer service, and plus doing the shipping. So that was a challenge. And I thought, this is not something, working in the shipping room and handling heavy boxes and stuff is not something I could do long term.
Mm-hmm.
There was an opening to work in ministry relations as the administrative assistant. Then I really didn't even ask to be moved up. I was just, here, this will be a good fit for you. So, and I've pretty much been there in that department since.
Why did you want to stay with Life Action after you left, after you came off the road? Did you know you wanted to still work for the ministry?
Yeah. And God had kind of just said, okay, well, this is the next step. And it just kind of continued, because it was every year okay, Lord, do I stay? Do I go back to teaching? But I really had kind of lost the heart and the desire I had for teaching. It just kept me here.
Mm-hmm. And so then you moved into an administrative assistant role, and you've served in that role, different departments and in different capacities?
Well, not different departments, but, different tasks have been added to that role.
Uh-huh.
Like when I first started with the Dear Team letters, that was the receptionists were working on those, and the gals that worked in the data processing department were doing those. And they had gotten behind, so I was asked to help catch them up. And I did that and have been doing it since.
I want to talk about that, because I'm not sure people realize how many letters we get every year. I mean, thousands.
It's thousands.
Thousands of letters. So describe for someone who doesn't know what we mean when we say Dear Team letters. What does that mean?
Well, toward the end, or at the end of the summit or the Life Action event, the revivalist will ask the people who are attending the summit to write how God has worked in their heart, what he's done and how he's changed their life, in essence.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so they write those out, and those are all sent back here to us at the...
And you're the one that opens them.
Yeah.
And you get to read them. So what's that like, being the first to receive that box, and every week you're just looking through letters of people pouring their hearts out?
Yeah.
What's that like?
Sometimes it's really encouraging, and sometimes I'm human.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like it's, oh no, I have more more to read, because reading people's handwriting is...
Oh, sure.
is a challenge, and that's the challenge in it. It's not what God has done in their hearts. It's the challenge of deciphering the handwriting and sometimes the grammar and sentence structure. But there's kind of been an ebb and flow for me of sometimes I really enjoy it and sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it has been, after I've typed them up and I go back and read through them, that's sometimes when it hits me, and if I read any of those out loud to someone, there's... It's powerful.
It's powerful. It's, for a lot of us who get to read them after you've typed them up and made it so that we don't have to decipher, which is very appreciated. So for people listening, Kirsten reads them, types them up, and then sends them out. to the rest of the team so that we can read them. And I cry every week reading them. And it's just a really powerful reminder of how God is using Life Action, but that God is doing the work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's
really easy for us to be like, we're doing this and this and this, but we're actually just creating opportunities for people to listen and seek God and respond to God. And so when they do, those transformative stories are just joyful, heartbreaking, but, heartbreaking in a good way where people are being broken so that God can, build them back up in that, like recognizing their sins. So what are some of the common themes that you tend to find in those letters?
bitterness and forgiveness
Yeah.
are two. And then a lot of times it's recognizing how much of a roadblock we are to our own selves. In the
Talk
pride.
about that. What do you mean by that?
Just our pride gets in the way, and our thinking, oh, well, I can handle this. I don't need to involve God. Where it's actually the other way around. It's like God is already involved.
Yeah.
And I need to acknowledge that and, bow the knee to Him.
And seeing what people are dealing with in their lives.
Right. Yeah.
Because when you go to church with people and you sit next to them, you might not know what's
Yeah.
going on in their lives and in their world and how God just kind of grabs a hold of them. So that's encouraging sometimes too. So that's part of what you do. But then will you talk, because I actually didn't know that you do this. Talk about the Widows Ministry.
When I started doing it, it was 2007. And the lady that had done it for several years wanted time for other things, so she was kind of passing that on. And I think it's kind of started because I think one of the first gifts to the ministry was from a widow lady. And there have been several, ladies they've been involved in supporting the ministry. They and their husbands and their families, and I don't know, it just kind of evolved from there in a sense. It hasn't been a large number of widows at any point in time, but just to support them, just to know that, someone's thinking of them, praying for them on the anniversary of their wedding and the anniversary of their spouse's death and on their birthday. So just those 3 touch points a year where, for sure they get something from us.
Why do you think that's so important based on kind of your life story?
Because, those dates are important to you as a widow, but they're not necessarily remembered by anyone else. And so it's just kind of nice to have that, someone is thinking of you and knowing, these can be hard days.
Yeah.
They can be joyful days, but they can be hard days.
So in serving in a behind the scenes role, how do you view that position or that role in the ministry? Like why do you think God has you here continuing to do that?
I like the behind the scenes. Being out in front of children is one thing.
Yeah.
And being in charge of children is one thing, but I found that's not where I want to be.
An essential supporting role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
I like the details behind the scenes, I guess.
Sure. With your history of having experienced Life Action at your church and then traveling with Life Action, if someone asked you today, like, why should we have Life Action at our church? What do you say to them?
So it'll take you to a depth of faith and just trust in the Lord that you won't experience probably any other way. It's a challenge to add that to your schedule. But God gives you the ability and the energy and the stamina to go through it. I was still teaching. It really does take you to a depth of relationship with Christ that you probably won't experience in any other way.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of times in the back of my mind, a lot of times when I think of a retreat or something like that, you're looking for kind of that mountaintop high. That, wow, that was great and wonderful, but that doesn't carry you for very long. That high doesn't last. When you experience live action, you're challenged to go deeper, and to let um, God take care of the rest. And you just spend time with Him, and just going through the spiritual inventory and just going through that makes you realize uh, I'm not where God wants me to be, and how, and that's happened. I mean, I've sat through the messages several times over the years, and that happens every time. God will pinpoint something different, something new, something that, it wasn't that important maybe way back, a few years ago, a few months ago, but it is now. And so, I mean, God just keeps using it over and over. And I think that's the beauty of it.
Everything that you say, the word that comes to mind is relationship, right? You had said you'd grown up in a church where you really didn't have a relationship, but once you did, everything changed, it sounds like, right? And so it's like that deepening of that relationship almost.
Yeah.
And did you ever remarry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
I had been a widow for almost 12 years when I married Wayne Lake, and who I met here at Life Action.
He worked at Life Action?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He was the business manager for a number of years, many years. And his wife passed away. It happened fairly quickly. I mean, we kind of dated for about 4 months. We were engaged for 4 months. Got married. But we were both older and knew, and it's just what drew me to him was, I mean, when he would pray, I would hear him talking, I mean, in such a way that just kind of revealed his relationship with the Lord. And it just, that impacted me a lot. And I mean, he just was a man of integrity and, was very gentle with my heart. And we had a wonderful marriage, but he passed away a little over a year ago.
I'm so sorry.
God is walking me through the widow journey again.
And where is God meeting you in that right now?
He's just showing me that he's more than faithful, more than steadfast. He's stable. And I mean, I don't have any doubt about him providing or taking care of me today or in the future or whatever. God is God, and he's amazing.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I know in chapel we talked about having a life's message. And I know it's not always the message you ask for. And sometimes it's difficult things that are what create your life message. But to me, just learning your story and knowing that it is one of just trust and like steadfastness and steadiness. And and it sounds like you've been able to extend that message to other women who've experienced that. You're probably really a source of comfort to them. When you think about Life Action, you've been here for a bit and have devoted your life to serving this ministry. What do you, we've gone through a period of transition and you've been here long enough to see transition. So what do you hope for our ministry? When you pray for Life Action, what do you hope for us? What do you pray for us?
What I've seen is it's a ministry that's built on the firm foundation of a relationship with Christ. And I don't see that changing. But I do see, I mean, there's definitely a need to change to meet where the church is at this time, which churches are struggling.
Mm.
I mean, there are healthy churches.
Yeah.
That's not, but there are churches that are really struggling, and it's just a real change. And um, the basic needs that we all have, which is the need for a relationship with Christ, doesn't change. That foundational need doesn't change.
Yeah.
But how to reach people does. It's like the culture is, and social media and everything has changed things so much.
So it sounds like
Yes.
your prayer is that we continue to trust in the Lord and let Him guide us, and we might have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Just how God meets us where we are.
Right.
And as you continue to serve in the ministry, years down the road, when you look back on your time here, what do you hope your legacy is in serving in this ministry?
I hope they say that I'm faithful, that I've done what I could do to bring honor and glory to the Lord. It doesn't have to be standing in front of hundreds of people, which that would not be my thing. But just in the details and just taking care of the things the best I know how to take care of them at the time.
I love that, because God is in the details of our life.
Yeah,
Sometimes
He knows us intimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And without you being in the details, I don't think we are able to serve people, right? Like, we, as a relational ministry, we have to be in the details, because that's where the relationships are. Like your examples of just remembering an anniversary and sending out. I mean, that's a detail that could easily get overlooked, but for the woman receiving it, probably pretty impactful, right? Just that that they're cared and loved and seen, right? And so, well, thank you so much for sharing your story. In the beginning, you kind of opened with, or talked a little bit about just having a kind and gentle spirit, and that just illuminates out of you. So I just really appreciate you sharing the difficulties and the triumphs of your life story and your life message.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Changed Lives. If you were encouraged or inspired by what you heard, I want to invite you to take the next step. You can support the people whose story you just heard and others like them by visiting lifeaction.org/changedlives. Whether through prayer, giving, or sharing these stories, you can be part of what God is doing to revive relationships and transform lives.